Today's video, we'll be looking at the Hewlett-Packard Vectra XA.
We got 20-minute videos on old technology, computers, laser discs, and some CDs. We got two little dogs licking their balls on the screen, and now it's time for the show.
So I've always kind of liked the Vectra line of computers from Hewlett-Packard. They always seem to be more sort of business-based machines, but I don't know, I've always just kind of liked the look of them. They are pretty simplistic. They're not necessarily simplistic, but there's not anything specifically like fancy about them or anything, but I don't know, I just always kind of liked them and the look of them. Unfortunately though, I haven't really ever come across many of them in my adventures in retro PCs, but I did come across this one for a decent price. Unfortunately, it doesn't completely work, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, this is just the Vectra XA. There are many different models of these. They make pretty good, DOS, early Windows machines. This one is a Pentium 1 MMX machine. I actually don't recall the CPU in here. I think it's maybe a 166 or a 133 Intel Pentium. We'll take a look. So on this center plate here, which is pretty interesting, we have like a standard power button, and then we have our reset button, and then we have this button here that has a light and a little lock symbol, and this is actually a PC lock button. Supposedly, I haven't gotten it to work, but when you press this button, maybe I don't want it to work, but when you press this button, it locks your mouse and keyboard, but the activities, like whatever the computer's doing, it continues doing them. So it's not really like a pause button, supposedly, but it locks people out from using your mouse and keyboard, and then when you come back, I guess you deactivate it by putting in a password. So I guess I don't want it to work if someone else's password is on there, but yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. Again, more businessy oriented, where you're in an office and you don't want coworkers messing with your computer. Although I guess it would be useful at home if you don't want like a nosy spouse or kids back in the day getting into your computer when you step away from it. Hard drive activity light, Ethernet LAN light on the front, interesting. And I know on some models right here, there's like an audio option where there's a volume dial and a headphone jack, which that would have been cool if I had that on this one, but nope, it's just blank. Over here we have the drive bays. It looks like two 3.5-inch bays and one 5.25-inch bay. It's good enough. You could put like a zip drive here if you wanted. Put maybe like a combo drive here. I don't know. It's not too bad. So let's turn it around, take a look at the back. Okay, so here's the rear of this machine, and I haven't upgraded this or done anything since I got it. I don't know if this is stock, but this is just everything that was in it when I acquired this machine. So you might not be able to see it, but right here is a sort of like a Ethernet card, and there's two Ethernet jacks. I believe this one is 100T Ethernet speed, and then there's 10T Ethernet right there. So again, this was very sort of business oriented with the built-in Ethernet. We have some stuff built in down here labeled parallel port, serial A. We have a USB, serial B, and then we have mouse and keyboard PS2 ports. Power right here, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 expansion slots. Right here we have our video card. This looks like, I don't know what this is. Maybe some kind of weird SCSI. I'm not figuring out what that connector is at the moment. And then we have our audio, our sound card right there. So I guess we should open this guy up and take a look inside. So to take the case off, to get to the innards here, there's these little kind of plastic tabs that you have to click over and then kind of pull it off and lift it off. I believe they're a little rubber. Yeah, it looks like there's still one right here. Well, that seems pretty. I feel like they were a little bit bigger, but there's nothing here. That's pretty common. Doesn't look like these ones melted off though, or melted into just globs of goo. Looks like just the glue that held the little rubber legs on fell off. Alright, so here is the inside of the Vectra with the top of the case off. Right here we have a very non-standard power supply. It's very long. I believe this is proprietary to this case. I think it's only 100 watts, which seems kind of low for a machine of this era, but you know, whatever. I also believe this is the problem with my specific machine here. It has sort of issues powering on, and basically nothing works. The supposedly on this particular machine you can power it on through hitting the space bar when it's off. That doesn't work. Hitting the power button doesn't work, and I've checked all the connections and everything. The only way I can get this thing to power on is every once in a while if you plug it in and then unplug it and unplug it, plug it in, unplug it, plug it in. Eventually, when you plug it in, it will just automatically power on. So I'm assuming it's a problem with the power supply. Unfortunately, these are a little bit expensive on eBay. People like to gouge on these because they're, I guess, proprietary. You'll see these things, people trying to sell these as high as $200. I've seen a couple listings as low as maybe like $50, but I don't know if I care enough to dump $50 into this, like a new power supply for this. Maybe I could find a different solution, like a mini one that I could put here or something. Although I think the connector is a little bit proprietary too. Take a look in a minute. But yeah, I don't know if I want to invest the $50+ for a new power supply for this thing. Especially since I have socket 7 machines. This is a socket 7 machine. I like the look of it, but so yeah, it's a bit of a cramped tangle here. We've got the cards, hard drive right here, upside down. I guess that's how it mounts on this machine. Don't think there's room for a second one. Looks like there's only room for one hard drive, because under this hard drive, I believe, is that Ethernet card, floppy drive. Here's that CD drive. Yeah, it's a bit cramped. So I'm going to take out the power supply, take out these cards. We'll take a look at the board, take a quick look at the cards installed, and then we'll see if we can actually get it to power on. So if I can focus, take a look at the screws on this thing holding in the expansion cards. I think these are the original screws. They're kind of like flathead screws, but not quite. Like a flathead works, but not as well as it should. I don't know, it's just kind of weird screw. And unfortunately, these two I was able to get out, but this one holding in the video card, it's kind of stripped, or it's not working. I'm having a hard time getting out, which is really annoying. So I don't like these screws. Alright, so here we go with the power supply out of the way, and those expansion cards gone. So here's the little riser card. Looks like we have 3 PCI and 2 16-bit ISA. Pretty par for the course. Here's our chipset. Part of him, anyways. Chip right there. And another one right there. That one's kind of dark. This right here, I'm not sure what that goes to. We have our floppy drive and our 2 IDE connectors. RAM right here. This looks like an L2 cache slot for a Coast module. And here's our socket 7 CPU with just a heat sink, no fan on it. I mean, I guess you can add a fan if you want to. Voltage regulator, I believe. Yeah, the connector on this is standard AT here, but it looks like it has one of those auxiliary connectors as well, so that makes it even more kind of proprietary. Switches here, I believe that's for setting maybe memory, mostly for the CPU. And I say that because right here is a little chart for CPU speeds. But yeah, also the CMOS battery, I don't believe it's like a standard CMOS battery for like the CR whatever. I think it's a little different. The battery is a BR2325. I think it's like slightly bigger. Maybe I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that, but I think this is a slightly bigger battery. It's a little bit different because I did replace it because I just thought maybe the powering up issue is a CMOS battery issue, because that can make the computer do weird things. But no, it kept doing the same problem. So everything else, you know, the caps and stuff look good. This is to that front panel thing. So I'm just going to take that heatsink off. See what we have under there. I suppose the problem with the powering on could also be this voltage regulator. Maybe. I don't really know how the powering system in these old computers work very well. Just a guy sharing a hobby here. Again, I'm not an engineer or anything, so I don't know if this voltage regulator would have anything to do with the power on process. I don't really necessarily think it would. I think this just regulates the voltage to the CPU, but I don't see any like leaking or bulging caps or anything on this, so it seems like it's in good working order. So I don't know. Alright, so our CPU is a 166 megahertz Intel Pentium MMX. Not a bad choice for a CPU. Even for a DOS rig, that's a pretty decent CPU. Classic CPU, actually. So we're going to put this guy back in there, and now we know for sure what it is. And I'm not going to go through the hassle of removing this and somehow getting that hard drive out, because it's just an Ethernet card. But there is this gaping hole on the side, and you can see in there is that Ethernet card. The little slot on the other side of the riser. I think it might be like a specialized slot for this specific Ethernet card. So yeah. And here's the front with the cover of the case removed. And yeah, it looks like these drives are on rails. Yuck. Rail system. And then this little thing, I'm not going to do it, but oh yeah, this just lifts out. I think there might be a screw or something, but this can pop off and you can check out the back of it. Alright, so let's look at the expansion cards real quick. We've got, for video, we have a Matrox Millennium. You can see it doesn't have the memory expansion card on it, but PCI card. This is a decent card. Forget exactly what kind of weird monitor connection that is, but it does do standard VGA. This is a half decent card. It works pretty well in DOS. Really good sort of image quality. It does have some compatibilities in DOS, and I don't think it supports things like fog tables and things like that. But it's a pretty decent choice, especially if you want to pair it with a Voodoo or a Voodoo 2. So this was also widely used in business applications. A lot of business OEM machines put this Matrox Millennium card in, so it makes sense that this would be the video card on there. So yeah, this is not bad as far as video cards go. These are pretty fast cards in games, like DOS games, from what I recall as well. The sound card is just, you could tell from the coloring here, I don't know, it just seems like when it has the color-coded things, it's kind of generic, at least when we're talking about ISA cards. I don't know, probably not, since I think all the later ones had the color coding, but when I always see that, I think it's just because I see that and I know it's not like a really old card, and I just like the really old ones. But this is pretty generic, Sound Blaster 16. I couldn't find a real OPL chip on it, and I found these interesting jumpers here that say, if it will focus, it says HP front panel, so maybe this is like an OEM version of the Sound Blaster 16 for this machine. Maybe if you had that front sound panel I was talking about, I don't know. I mean, it's cool that it's an ISA sound card. This will work fine for DOS. This is actually a decent choice for DOS just because it's very compatible, but it's not going to sound great because it's a creative Sound Blaster card, and it also doesn't have a real OPL chip on it, at least none that I could find. I think it might, unless it's integrated into one of these, but I don't think it is. So yeah, much better choices out there for sound, but it's not the worst. And then there's this thing, I'm still not sure what this actually is, but it's there. Alright, moving on. Actually, on the bottom of this power supply, there's a fan at this angled part here, and I believe when it sits in there and it's a normal spot, I'm guessing it actually blows down onto that heatsink cooling the CPU. That's kind of neat. So, yeah, that's neat. Alright, so this is basically how I've been getting the thing to power up. So I'll plug it in. Okay, so it's plugged in, but nothing. You can hit the power button all day and nothing will happen. Nothing. It just won't power on. But if you just keep unplugging and then plugging it back in, it will eventually just randomly power on. So we'll see how many unpluggings and pluggings it takes. And I don't recommend treating a power supply like this regardless, but it was just easier if I pulled it out and just unplugged it and plugged it. It took about 10 times and then it finally just randomly powered on. So after taking things apart again and checking things out, the whole situation with the power supply was really bothering me, and I found out that it wasn't actually the power supply, it was this button here. So how it's supposed to work, it's a button, and when you press the power button it kind of pushes it in, and that will start the computer, and it's supposed to then pop out by itself, and then when you click it in again that cuts power and then it pops out by itself. But for some reason on this with the button, when you push it in it just kind of gets stuck and it doesn't pop back out, so it just gets stuck there. So I tried everything. I tried loosening the screws so there was more space for the thing to come out with. I just could not get it to work reliably. The only way I could get it to work reliably is actually removing the little button cover. I mean, this isn't the actual button. This is like the button that pushes in the button. But taking this out was really the only way I could kind of get it to work reliably, because no matter what I do, I just can't get that thing to pop back out when this is installed. Now taking it out, I can kind of get it to. So see, there it goes. You can see the green, and then I have to kind of, if I tap it, it will pop back out, and then I can press it and turn it off. And I turn it on. Sometimes it will pop out on its own with this removed. But with this in there, it's just, once you turn it on, it just will not turn off again. So, I mean, I like I said, I tried doing a bunch of things to give that little switch in there like space, but I don't know, there's just something goofed up in there that with this thing in there, it just doesn't work. It's just like stuck. So it's really ugly, but at least I can get it to reliably turn on and off now without messing around with that plug. Okay, so I am thinking this thing was maybe used in a school. We've got FTP 95. There's Netscape. When I opened up, poking around the hard drive, there's looks like different names of students maybe. I don't know what Stinger EXE is. There's 48 megabytes of RAM on this machine. So yeah, interesting, I guess. Alright, so here's some shots of it powering up. This is before I took the button off, just to make it be able to start reliably. There's my new little LCD. I wanted to do some more footage of the computer itself running, instead of just direct screenshots. Some of you guys I love this Vectra startup screen for some reason, but some of you guys really like just seeing the computer and the screen, the whole package running. So I wanted to do more of those in the future. So I picked this thing up at Goodwill just because I think it's more period appropriate looking than the old black LCD I had. So it's older, it's got a nice beige, so it matches a lot of those older machines that I use. And it even has speakers built in. They're kind of crappy speakers, but it just makes it easier for me. So I don't have to set up speakers too. But yeah, Planet X3 playing on there. The reason I don't have something more appropriate for this machine, so like a later game that might have done better with this kind of CPU, like Unreal or something like that, is I was on a time crunch, and The CD drive in this machine doesn't work, that I found out. It makes really horrible sound, does not read discs. But the floppy drive does work, and this was hundreds of computer big box games, and this was the only game on floppy that I had in easy reach at the moment, and I was on a bit of a time crunch. So yeah, here is Planet X3 on this machine. This machine's pretty overpowered for this game, but running it in VGA mode, and it's playing just fine. I did set it for ad-lib though, and it was still outputting through the PC speaker, but I don't know. So I like the Vectra XA. It's a decent little machine, decent little socket 7 machine. It's got a lot of room for, you know, making it a little more powerful for you, depending on your needs, or even making it a little less powerful depending on your needs. It just does the job. It's nothing particularly special, but if you need a retro rig, grab a Vectra. It seems to work just fine. Nice little machine. I'm gonna keep working on that little power button. It seems like it'd be something simple, you know. Just it seems like it'd be simple. You just do something where I don't know, but it's not. I worked on it for like an hour, over an hour last night, trying to get it to work, and just with that button in, you press it in once, and you know you can either turn it on or turn it off once, but then that little button will not pop back out with that cover button on it. So I don't know. I have a couple things in mind. You know, I tried jamming, putting something in there. I tried giving it more space. It's just, I don't know. But hopefully I'll get that figured out, and then it'll be a nice machine. Of course, I'm gonna have to replace that CD drive. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that's about all I can say for this video. I hope you like this content, and if you do like this content, give us a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh yeah, and check out the screensaver on this. UV Viz-tastic. Nice.